Hello everyone. The last part of Sick Fix is here. A little surprise, if you will. I'm doing experiments again, so hopefully you will enjoy. As always, special thanks to my lovely patrons, members, and all of you who still watch my videos. Don't forget to subscribe to keep up with the uploads, and check out the members only posts with Jealousy and Confession series. If there was something Kageyama hated from the bottom of his heart, it was being unable to move. His teammates sometimes made fun of him for it, comparing him to a tuna or, in a better case, a shark. But that's just how his body was constructed. He needed his daily dose of exercise, even if it was something small like going shopping. Alas, his legs were too weak to support him during a run now, his head killing him with both ache and fever to the point he couldn't be sure to keep the right direction anyway. And after attempting to push through it and getting caught, the coach sent him home to rest for at least a week, citing his own safety and the others' health as reasons. He understood, he really did, but it didn't make it any better. He rolled around on the bed, unable to find a comfortable position that would let him fall asleep before it was time for their usual evening call. But even that little wasn't given to him. He's going to figure out something's wrong the moment I turn on the camera. It probably wasn't the best idea to alert his boyfriend to the fact he was sick, but he missed Hinata too much to cancel the call. Meaning he had to act healthy to his best ability. How he was going to do that? No idea. But he had to. He couldn't worry Hinata when his boyfriend had to focus on his own matches. Maybe if I keep the blinds shut? That might help. He's going to ask why I'm sitting in the dark though. He sighed and rolled over again, the flicker of despair in his chest making it even harder to turn his brain off for at least the 2 hours he had. This is so dumb. Out of all times. Despite everything, he had to manage to fall asleep eventually, as he was suddenly being woken up by the alarm clock he set earlier. It gave him a bit of time to pull himself together, but the moment he tried standing up, his head spun so badly he had to sit back down immediately. His fever also didn't seem to go down at all, maybe even on the contrary. Why today of all days? Straining every last bit of his remaining strength, he pulled himself out of the bed, a little wobbly but without another fail, and headed to the bathroom to wash his face at the very least. He almost startled when he saw his face in the mirror, his pale skin sharply contrasting his hair and bloodshot eyes. That's not good. Just the sight alone was enough to make him give up on any attempt to look presentable, and with a deep sigh, he waddled into the living room to get his laptop, grabbing a thick sweatshirt along the way. He barely settled down when the icon of Hinata's face popped up in the corner of his screen. He hesitated for a second or two, and then finally accepted the call. Hey, how's everything? All good? You won't believe what happened today. Sakura agreed to play beach with me. Finally! He's a tough one to crack, I tell you, but he's going to be hooked in no time. Kageyama just smiled, swallowing the note that since Hinata's enthusiasm was so infectious, no one could really not get hooked on the things he introduced them to. It was an enviable quality, one he would love to have at least to a degree. Maybe then he wouldn't have such an issue forming bonds. Hey, Earth to Tobio, are you listening? Yes, of course I'm. You sure? He let out an exaggerated sigh. Seriously, What am I supposed to do with you? I don't talk, you get nervous. I talk, you don't listen. I can't win. Sorry. He shivered, subconsciously pulling the sweatshirt closer to him even though it would do nothing against the cold from within. He tried to be inconspicuous, but Hinata's brows furrowed immediately. Are you okay? It can't be that cold in Italy, no? It's not. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I have to worry when I don't know what's going on. What's wrong? Heaving a deep sigh, Kageyama thought about making up some dumb excuse, just so he didn't concern his boyfriend further. However, one look into his eyes and another shiver running through his body broke that resolve as if it was made of straw. So much for acting his best. I got a bit sick. It's just some aches and light fever, nothing serious. Unsurprisingly, Hinata's eyes widened after his words, the cheerful demeanor gone from his face completely. You are sick? Why didn't you say something? I should have known something was off when you didn't say a word. You didn't let me. Yeah, true. Sorry. But you should have told me you are unwell. We could have called another time. I wanted to see you. His cheeks prickled with heat even though it was no secret he missed his boyfriend anymore. He had no reason to be embarrassed about admitting it. They were together after all. Sometimes though, it made him feel like a teenager again. Hinata visibly melted, reaching to the camera as if patting his head through the screen. Oh, that's sweet. But you should be resting. Sickness is no joke. Wouldn't you know a lot about that, huh? Hey, that was years ago. I learned my lesson, and I'm much better at taking care of myself now. His face softened again. Is there someone to help you out if you need it? I suppose. The guys on the team said I can call them. Okay, that's good. But don't wait till last minute to do that, understood? There's nothing wrong with asking for help. He knew. And he also knew his teammates would definitely come around to bring him food and such if he asked them to. He just needed to make the first step. Go to bed, love. But I'll stay on the call, I promise. But you should go to bed. He still hesitated for a beat, but eventually gave up and headed back into the bedroom with the laptop in hand, more than glad when he laid down again. His heart fluttered when Hinata smiled at him through the screen, and he would give anything to have his boyfriend next to him, even if just for a moment. Want me to stay quiet, or can I talk at you? Go ahead. I'm listening. And he was, for as long as he could anyway, but eventually drifted off with the most pleasant sound in his ears. While he loved his work, otherwise he wouldn't be able to do it, obviously, Akaashi would much appreciate if the industry standards for deadlines were less strict. Unfortunately for him, it was the season of new stories coming out again, meaning he was drowning in a sea of pages needing editing since the start of the week. Even now, on Friday evening after he was supposed to enjoy the peace of their home. He was tired, so tired, barely able to read the text anymore. And to top it all off, his head had been hurting since morning, now feeling like someone was trying to break out of his skull. You should take a break. Sighing, he rubbed his eyes to get them to work again and shook his head, moving on autopilot as he put one reviewed page away and took another from the endless pile. I have to finish this. I'm sure it doesn't have to be finished today. The world won't end if you leave it for next week. Do you realize how ironic that sounds coming from you? At least Bokuto had the decency to look sheepish after the reminder of the endless hours of extra practice he put him through in high school. Although he always stayed from his own free will, and later because of his damn crush, so he really couldn't blame Bokuto for that. Noted and accepted. But I wizened over the years. I know now rest is important. He scrunched his nose when glancing at the pile of papers, surely imagining the horror of having to deal with that himself. Definitely more important than this. It's not that simple, Ko. Then make it that simple. He beamed like the sun itself. Looking so proud of himself, Akaashi had to chuckle. There was a certain kind of wisdom to his boyfriend's simple mind, one that never stopped astounding him. He couldn't even be mad for Bokuto seemingly not understanding his situation, because in his mind, the situation really was that easy. Still, he couldn't abandon his work right now, as tempting as it was to just curl in Bokuto's arms and snooze away. I need to finish at least this smaller pile, then we can watch something if you want. Bokuto still didn't look content though, his eyebrows scrunched like always when he was thinking about his next course of action. But before Akaashi could say anything, he let out a decisive huff and shook his head before putting his hands on his hips. Reject it. We are going to sleep. Or rather, you are going to sleep. But... Nuh-uh, I don't hear anything. Akaashi yelped as Bokuto effortlessly picked him up from the couch, his weak protest falling on deaf ears. Soon he was settled on the bed, the sweet calling of the soft mattress luring him to just lie down and forget everything. Not that he could do anything else, since Bokuto was still by him like a guardian, making sure he wouldn't run away. This is so unnecessary, Ko. Is it now? Isn't it you who always bugs me about knowing when to take a break? He frowned, laying his hand against Akaashi's cheek before moving to his forehead. You are starting to burn up. Really? Yeah. So you better go to sleep before it forms into something nasty. Because then you definitely won't be able to meet the deadlines. He crossed his arms over his chest as if to add weight to the statement, looking stern yet concerned at the same time. And there was nothing Akaashi could say to dispute that, since, as painful as it was to admit it, Bokuto was right. And so he sighed, changed, and obediently crawled under the blanket, soon finding himself wrapped in the most secure hold of Bokuto's muscly arms. A much more pleasant shiver ran through his body when a kiss landed on the back of his neck, the whispered words of good night luring him into sleep. Despite all of Bokuto's precautions, the way Akaashi woke up the next morning could only be described as scorching. Everything was too hot. The room, the blanket, even his boyfriend's arms. And it didn't get much better even after Bokuto got up to get him some water and a thermometer. I should have gotten you to sleep earlier. His whole posture and hair drooped with his words, his eyes fixed on the thermometer showing little less than 39 degrees, before hesitantly meeting Akaashi's gaze. I'm sorry. Unable to be upset for something like this, Akaashi reached for his hand with a soft smile on his lips, trying not to show how heavy his motions were. It's fine. You did what you could. This is on me for not taking care of myself. But you'll be okay soon, you'll see. I'll take care of you. I know. Thank you. He reluctantly sank back into the mattress, his mind too tired to worry about the heap of unfinished work still on their table. Although, even if that wasn't the case, he highly doubted Bokuto would allow him to work right now. Speaking of, the man was now busying himself with creating a more comfortable nest for him, if Akaashi could judge by the growing pile of pillows and blankets on their bed. He couldn't see himself using more layers, but he didn't want Bokuto to go into a guilty slump. Not because he was too weak to deal with it, but because it pained him to see his boyfriend gloom over things out of his control. Should I call the coach? I'm staying home today. No, it's okay. I'll be fine for a few hours. Are you sure? He looked uncertain, making Akaashi's heart melt. Of course. I promise I won't try to work while you are away. But would you get me my phone? Oh, yeah, of course. He rushed off, not before stealing a kiss though, and Akaashi had to smile at the quiet self-talk Bokuto always did when he was restless. Despite swearing to Kenma that he wasn't sick, Kuroo had to admit he wasn't feeling the greatest as of lately. He wasn't actually lying since, given the context, Kenma was asking about lethal illnesses, not a common cold or flu. It still left a bit of a sour taste in his mouth though. He tried his best to not let his discomfort show, both because of Kenma and because of the heap of work that landed on his desk with the upcoming league event. He just couldn't be sick right now. However, it didn't take long before his head started to fall, his eyelids growing too heavy to keep them open even with all his willpower strained to the limit. I guess that's it for today then. Damn it. Painfully slow, he pushed all the remaining paperwork aside to wait for him for tomorrow, and then waddled out of the office, quickly finding out that he was dead last on the floor. Feeling more like a zombie than a living being, he pushed through the parking lot towards the train station, somewhat glad they didn't have a car he could potentially injure someone with in his state. Should have maybe called a taxi with Kenma's card. He wouldn't even notice. He chuckled under his breath, knowing well that his boyfriend would gladly pay for him if he asked, but also that he would never dare to touch money that wasn't his just because his boyfriend was rich. You are thinking nonsense. Taking that as another proof that he needed to get home as soon as possible and preferably go straight to bed, he settled near the door on the train, forcing his eyes to stay open to not miss his stop. The last thing he needed that evening was to end up who knows where, alone and lost. He sighed the biggest sigh of relief once he leaned his back against their apartment door, all but stumbling inside after fighting with the key for at least a minute. He tried to keep the noise to a minimum, worried he could alert Kenma if his boyfriend wasn't streaming. But since his head weighed twice as much today, it seemed, he couldn't stop his body from bumping into things along the way to the living room, much to his frustration. Now I'll get bruises on top of a fever. Great. He stopped in his tracks by the kitchen already though, surprised to see Kenma in full swing by the stove. Seeing Kenma cook was unusual enough already, but to do so when he was home alone, that equaled a miracle. He found himself smiling at the sight, melting a little inside with something else than the cursed fever for once, barely able to resist going in and hugging Kenma from behind. What are we having? Not sure yet. He narrowed his eyes at the piece of meat in front of him. Depends on whether this one is going to do what it's supposed to. Kuroo chuckled at the logic and gently ruffled Kenma's hair before stepping away again to not infect him with whatever virus jumped into his body. I'm sure it's going to be great. Do you want my help? No, go take a shower, it's fine. Do I stink or something? No, but you always take an early one when you come home late. He said it so matter-of-factly, Kuroo wasn't sure how to respond for a moment. It was true, of course, but he didn't expect Kenma to notice the pattern, since he was usually caught up in streaming when he came home. Either way, a shower sounded pretty good right now. And so he pressed a quick kiss to Kenma's hair and headed to the bathroom to wash off the sweat starting to coat his skin. However, his head started to spin despite him not using overly hot water. His vision went blank for a brief second when he stepped out of the shower, giving him barely enough time to catch onto the sink before he could break his head on it. Might do better with just going to bed. He hated it. Hated the fact he would miss out on having dinner together after over a week. But at this point, he was quite sure he wouldn't be able to enjoy the food anyway and just hurt Kenma's feelings with his apathy. And so he carefully snuck into the bedroom, a sudden chill rushing through his body, forcing him to wrap himself into the way. His breaths were shaky and chest heaved as if he just finished running, but ache relieved for a precious moment. Even his mind seemed too tired to think anymore, everything within him urging him to go to sleep and hopefully get rid of the sickness that way. And maybe he did just that, since, when he opened his eyes again, the room was much darker than before, only illuminated by a soft light coming from the bedside lamp, which he didn't turn on as far as he recalled. Before he could figure that mystery out, the door opened quietly, followed by light footsteps coming closer. Awake already? Huh? Something cold touched his forehead, immediately relieving the scorching feeling a little. Then Kenma appeared in his field of vision, caressing his cheek. Do you want to eat something? Or just sleep? I don't know. Sorry, I didn't realize. I fell asleep. It's fine. I thought something happened when you didn't come back. He frowned, gently jabbing into Kuroo's shoulder. Why didn't you say something? You swore you weren't sick. It's just a fever, really. Clicking his tongue, Kenma looked away briefly, his face scrunching before he let out a long sigh. He then adjusted the wet cloth on Kuroo's forehead, carefully holding a glass with water to his lips. Take a sip, slowly. Kuroo did as he was told, already too guilty to protest against the offered help. He wanted to apologize, both for lying and for missing on dinner, but he wasn't allowed to as Kenma's expression turned uncertain. Do you mind if I stay here and play something? You don't have to stay. You might get sick too. That never stopped you in the past. He chewed on his lower lip, squeezing the switch in his hand. You always snuck into my room when I got sick back then, to keep me company. A tired chuckle escaped Kuroo's mouth with the reminder. You said it helped against nightmares when I was with you. It did. So, let me do something for you too. I don't know what I'm doing, but I don't want you to be alone. Okay, Ken. Don't call me that. There was no bite in his words though, no annoyance. His voice stayed soft, gentle like the fingers playing with his hair. And Kuroo had absolutely no mind to reject the offer. Although... Can I hug you? Kenma paused for a beat, but then sighed and nodded, settling on the bed with his back against the wall, gently rubbing Kuroo's side until he lay comfortably with his head in Kenma's lap. How is it? Perfect. Thank you. Just get better again, okay? Unable to respond verbally anymore, Kuroo just hummed softly into the fabric of Kenma's sweatshirt, sleep already taking over his mind again. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'm not entirely sure if I will be going into the more popular ships on this channel. Again, this is another experiment. But I am working on some of the past challenges made with the more popular ships. So we will see how that will go. You liked the first one, so hopefully it's going to stay that way into the future as well. And yeah, we will see, we will see. I hope you enjoyed this and look forward to the next one. If you have any requests or ideas, the request form is linked in the video description. See you next time.